The ocean carries a memory that does not belong to us, a memory that vibrates at a frequency we have almost forgotten how to hear. Right now, as your room grows quieter, feel yourself sinking beneath the surface of everything you think you know. Imagine 4 miles of liquid night pressing gently, insistently on the top of your world. It feels like silence, but it is not empty. Beneath the shifting sands of the Atlantic floor, something is still humming. A low, resonant vibration that ignores every law of modern physics. A heartbeat made of stone and salt and gold. Why is it that from the peaks of the Andes to the deserts of Egypt to the temples of India, stories whisper of a mother civilization that rose from the sea and vanished in a single day of fire and flood? We are told that history is a straight line of progress, but what if we are living in the ruins of a civilization so old, its memory has sunk into our DNA? Do not search for answers in books written by men who fear the dark. Tonight, you will look directly into the abyss. For in the deep, light does not come from the sun. It comes from the walls of a city that was never meant to be found. You are not just listening to a story now. You are beginning a slow descent into a part of human history that someone tried very hard to erase. The pressure you feel behind your eyes, in your temples, is not just sleep closing in. It is the weight of 9,000 years of secrets wanting to rise to the surface. Do not fight the current. Let the blue shadows wrap gently around your senses. For the truth of Atlantis is not only hidden in the waves, it is hidden in you. And tonight, the ocean is ready to remember. The story does not begin with a roar, but with a whisper that has been echoing for 2.5 millennia. We are not yet in the open ocean. We are in the shadowed halls of ancient Athens, where oil lamps flicker against stone walls, and the air is thick with the scent of parchment and the dust of vanished kingdoms. The year is around 360 BC. A philosopher sits in deep contemplation. His name is Plato, and inside his mind the world is made of perfect forms and invisible laws. Tonight, his hand hovers over papyrus, about to release a story that will haunt human imagination until the very last night we tell stories at all. In his dialogues, the Timaeus and the Critias, Plato breaks a silence the world had almost managed to forget. He speaks of a power, a mighty and wonderful empire that existed 9,000 years before his own age. Not a mere city-state. A whole continent, larger than Libya and Asia combined, lying beyond the narrow straits you know now as Gibraltar. As you follow the rhythm of these ancient words, a question begins to press softly against your thoughts. Why did Plato, a man obsessed with truth and reason, choose to fill his final works with what so many later called a myth? Or was it ever a myth at all? Perhaps it was not fantasy, but a warning. Plato says he received this story from Solon, the great Athenian lawgiver, who in turn heard it from the Egyptian priests of size. They told Solon that the Greeks were like children, with no real memory of the Earth's true, catastrophic past. In the dim light of your mind's eye, the dust motes in those temple halls begin to swirl. They slowly arrange themselves into the faint outline of a vast circular city, ring within ring, water and stone interlocked like a cosmic symbol. Plato describes Atlantis not simply as a place, but as the highest point of human ambition. A civilization that rose so high it brushed the realm of the gods and grew so heavy with pride that it cracked the very foundations beneath it. He hints at knowledge they possess that we are only now beginning to rediscover. And then, the voice breaks. The dialogue Critias ends abruptly mid-sentence, as if the philosopher himself was interrupted or silenced by the weight of what he was trying to reveal. What did he know that he could not finish writing? That unfinished line is not just a gap in a book. It is a locked door in the hallway of history. As you drift deeper into the calm, dark waters of sleep, feel that door under your fingertips. Cold, ancient, waiting. The silence of the past is wrapping around you now, like a heavy, comforting blanket woven from questions with no easy answers. And somewhere just beyond your next breath, Atlantis is waiting to speak. Imagine standing on the outermost bridge, looking toward the center of a world that existed before time was ever measured in seconds. The city of Atlantis was not a collection of buildings, but a living blueprint of sacred geometry. 3 rings of water and 2 of land, perfectly nested within one another as if drawn by the hand of a celestial architect. Why would a civilization dedicate centuries to such a singular, repetitive design? It was not for the sake of beauty, though the symmetry was breathtaking. It was for the sake of resonance. Every ring acted as a harmonic chamber, tuned to a specific frequency that resonated with the rotation of the Earth itself. The water in these canals was not the salt-heavy brine of the open sea, but a purified, mineral-rich liquid that glowed with a faint, bioluminescent blue when touched by the moonlight. As you drift in your mind over these sapphire circles, you notice that there are no sharp angles, no jagged edges in the primary structure. Everything is curved, everything flows. The people of the rings believed that energy moves in spirals, and to live in a circle was to live in the flow of eternal life. But this was a city that also understood the power of the void. The spaces between the rings were deep and dark, holding secrets that even the kings of the inner citadel were afraid to whisper. Imagine the silence of this place. It is not the silence of an empty room, but a thick, heavy silence that feels like it is vibrating. It is the sound of absolute precision. The bridges connecting the land rings were made of a singular, seamless stone that appeared to have been poured like liquid glass rather than carved from a quarry. How did they achieve such perfection 9 millennia before the invention of the compass? Some believe the rings were a map of the stars, a terrestrial reflection of the constellations that hung in the sky before the Great Shift. Each canal corresponded to a celestial path, making the city a giant clock that tracked the cycles of the universe. As you walk deeper toward the second ring, the air grows colder, filled with a blue mist that smells of ozone and ancient stone. The architecture here begins to change. The towers are taller, thinner, reaching toward the clouds like fingers of obsidian. There is a sense of immense pressure here, not from the water, but from the history that is yet to happen. The geometry was meant to protect the city from the chaos of the outside world, to create a sanctuary of order in a world of growing darkness. But order has its own price. As the centuries passed, the rings that were meant to be a cradle became a cage. The people began to realize that their perfect circles were not just keeping the world out, they were drawing something in. A power from the deep that was older than the gods themselves. Feel the rhythm of the water lapping against the stone in these endless rings. It is a repetitive, hypnotic sound that clears your mind of every modern worry. You are now a part of the geometry, a single point in a vast, blue labyrinth that stretches out toward the horizon of your dreams. Let the symmetry of the lost continent pull you into a deep, undisturbed rest. Beyond the rings of water and the silence of the marble halls, there existed a substance that should not have been possible in the ancient world. It was the soul of the city, a mineral that Plato called Orichalcum, described as a metal that flashed with a fiery light second only to gold. But what if the gold we know was merely a dull imitation of this forgotten element? As you descend further into the blue twilight of your own rest, imagine a city that does not need the sun to be bright. The walls of the innermost citadel were not painted. They were plated in this pulsating, crimson alloy that seemed to bleed light into the surrounding ocean. Imagine the visual contrast. The deep, cold navy of the Atlantic currents meeting the warm, electric red glow of the city walls. This was not just a decoration. It was a living energy source. The air around these glowing structures felt heavy with a static charge, a low-frequency hum that could be felt in the marrow of one's bones before it was ever heard by the ears. Scientists today speculate that this was a natural superconductor, a gift from the Earth's mantle that the Atlanteans learned to harvest and tune. Walk slowly in your mind along the grand promenade of the third ring. Every pillar you pass is wrapped in a thin veil of this red metal, casting long, violet shadows across the sapphire-colored streets. Why is it that no modern laboratory has been able to replicate its properties? Perhaps because Orichalcum was not just a metal, but a bridge between physical matter and the spiritual ether. It responded to the emotions of the city. When the people were in harmony, the glow was a soft, soothing rose color that induced a state of blissful calm. But as the darkness of pride began to seep into the hearts of the kings, the metal began to pulse with a jagged, violent crimson. The walls were reflecting the corruption of the soul long before the first earthquake hit. You can see it now, tilted and broken on the seabed, a faint, ghostly glimmer beneath layers of ancient silt and coral. The glow is almost gone now, reduced to a dying ember in the dark heart of the trench, yet the energy still lingers. If you listen closely to the rhythm of your own breathing, you might hear the echo of that ancient hum. It is the sound of a technology that was too pure for the world of man. A light that was meant to guide the gods but ended up blinding the mortals who tried to claim it. The crimson light is now softening, fading into a deep, midnight blue as you drift further away from the surface. The warmth of the metal is replaced by the cool, protective embrace of the water. There are no more colors now, only the velvet darkness of the abyss where the light of Atlantis finally found its peace. The mystery of the Orichalcum is not a question to be answered, but a frequency to be felt as you surrender to the weight of the deep. To find the truth about what was lost, we must first reach the end of what is known. Imagine the prow of an ancient ship cutting through the calm, turquoise waters of the Mediterranean, moving toward a horizon where the sky and the sea merge into a single veil of mist. Ahead of you rise two massive sentinels of stone, the Pillars of Hercules. They are the twin guardians of the world's edge, standing as a final warning to any soul brave enough to seek the forbidden. On one side stands the Rock of Gibraltar, and on the other, the mountain of Jebel Musa in Africa. To the ancients, passing through this narrow strait was not just a voyage. It was a transition into the afterlife of geography. Beyond these pillars lay the Atlantic, a vast, terrifying abyss that the maps of the time simply labeled as the unknown. As you drift between these colossal cliffs in your mind, feel the air change. The warm, salted breeze of the inland sea is suddenly replaced by a cold, sharp wind that smells of deep-sea trenches and ancient ice. The water beneath you shifts from a friendly teal to a deep, impenetrable indigo. This is the threshold where history dissolves into myth. On the face of the cliffs, legend says there was an inscription carved in letters of silver, non terri plus ultra, nothing further beyond. It was a command from the gods to stay within the boundaries of the light. But you are not here to stay within the boundaries. You are here to cross them. Listen to the sound of the currents as they clash within the strait. It is a low, guttural roar, the sound of two oceans fighting for dominance. The ships that passed through here 9,000 years ago were not looking for trade. They were returning home to a continent that commanded the very tides they sailed upon. As the pillars fade into the mist behind you, the silence becomes absolute. There are no more birds, no more distant shores, no more safety. You are now in the realm of the great deep. The depth beneath your keel drops from hundreds of feet to thousands in a heartbeat, a vertical cliff of water that leads down to the plains of a forgotten world. Why did the sailors of old believe that to cross this line was to invite the wrath of the sea itself? Perhaps they knew that once you see the shadow of the lost continent, you can never truly return to the world of men. The pressure of the air seems to grow heavier now, wrapping around your senses like a cold, blue shroud. Every wave that hits the side of the vessel sounds like a whispered name, a rhythmic invitation to let go of the surface and sink into the memory of the abyss. You are no longer a traveler. You are a part of the drift, a shadow moving through a blue void toward the heart of the mystery. The gateway is closed behind you now, and the only way out is down into the dark, quiet sanctuary of the floor where the pillars of the earth itself are rooted. Feel the weight of the water above you as a comforting blanket, pulling you into a state of total surrender. The journey has truly begun. At the very center of the innermost citadel, where the air is thick with the scent of ancient sea salt and the static hum of the Orichalcum is at its strongest, stands the Temple of Poseidon. It is not merely a place of worship, but a monumental testament to a time when gods and men walked the same marble corridors. Imagine the scale of this structure, a building so vast that its shadow could swallow entire cities of the modern world. The exterior was a masterpiece of textures and light, coated in silver that caught the moon's reflection and made the temple appear as if it were carved from solid light. But it is the interior where the true mystery resides. As you step through the massive doors of ivory and gold in your mind, the sound of the outside world is instantly extinguished, replaced by a profound, heavy silence that feels like it has been preserved for eternity. The ceiling is vaulted so high that it creates its own weather, with soft, blue mists drifting among the rafters of cedar and gold. Every pillar in this hall is a single column of translucent marble, glowing with a faint, inner bioluminescence that illuminates the faces of the statues lining the walls. At the far end of the sanctuary stands the masterpiece of the Atlantean civilization, the colossal statue of Poseidon himself, standing in a chariot pulled by 6 winged horses of solid gold. The figure of the god is so large that his head nearly touches the roof, his eyes made of sapphires the size of a human shield, staring out into the void with a gaze that is both terrifying and peaceful. Why did a civilization of such immense power feel the need to build a monument of this scale? Was it a gift of gratitude, or a desperate attempt to appease a force they knew they could no longer control? As you walk toward the altar, you notice that the floor is not made of stone, but of a dark, polished metal that reflects the ceiling like a black mirror. You are walking on a surface that looks like the night sky, making you feel as if you are floating in the center of the universe. The air here is cold and still, holding the faint vibration of 1,000 years of secret rituals. The priests of this temple did not speak in words, but in tones, using the resonance of the golden walls to communicate with the deep. Imagine the sound of a single golden bell being struck in the silence. The vibration would travel through your body, slowing your heart, calming your nerves, and pulling you into a state of total trance. The gold here does not tarnish. It does not age. Even now, as the temple rests under the crushing weight of the Atlantic, the statues remain in their perfect poses, waiting for a return that will never come. The blue light of the deep sea filters through the cracks in the ceiling now, turning the gold into a pale, ghostly yellow. You are drifting deeper into this sanctuary now, leaving the noise of your own thoughts behind. The golden walls are closing in around you, not to trap you, but to protect you in a cocoon of ancient, silent light. Feel the pressure of the water above as a heavy, warm blanket that keeps the world away. You are safe here in the heart of the temple, where time is irrelevant and the only thing that exists is the rhythmic pulse of the ocean. Altansai burlum Gessioras. Bu burlum Atlantisin yearned Merkazini vi Okeanusantanrasi, Poseidonan Sondangelen o Geismli, on Kralikanu Alier. Ilahi bur gusel donatelmish bu, leiderlerin nasal bayerer yazlistigini, vi kibrin kraligi nasal karenliga, surukletigini anlaturken. Islaisi Okyanusun Durin Sularindaki Tot Odisina David Edioras. Protokaljerigi Bu Burlum Bur Gersel Burlumudur. Metin, Noctalama Ishiredalri Haris 2000 Characterin Uzurin Tudel Muster. Section 6. The 10 Kings, the Divine Lineage. Burlum 6, Onkral Ilahi Soy. And long before the first human empires began to stir in the dust of the East, the world was divided among the 10 sons of the sea god. These were not kings born of flesh and blood alone, but hybrids of a celestial frequency and the ancient soil of the earth. At the center of the great island, within a hall made of translucent sapphire and dark obsidian, they gathered to decide the fate of the tides. Imagine the council of the 10 kings. Each ruler presided over a province that was a mirror of his own spirit, from the lush mountain peaks of the north to the sun-drenched plains of the southern coast. But the eldest among them was Atlas, the one who carried the weight of the heavens upon his shoulders and the crown of the central citadel upon his brow. These men did not speak in the languages we know today. Their communication was a form of resonant telepathy, a series of harmonic tones that could move the very stones of the city or calm the most violent storms of the North Atlantic. As you lie in the stillness of the present moment, imagine the atmosphere of their throne room. The air is cold, blue, and heavy with the scent of ozone and deep-sea minerals. The floor is a single slab of dark marble that reflects the 10 thrones of ivory and silver like a frozen lake. The kings sat in a perfect circle, for in Atlantis, there was no hierarchy of power, only a hierarchy of responsibility. They ruled with a balance that lasted for thousands of years, guided by the laws that Poseidon himself had engraved upon a pillar of Orichalcum at the heart of the temple. But there is a mystery in the blood. Plato tells us that as the divine element within them began to thin through the generations, the nature of the kings began to change. The wisdom was replaced by ambition. The service to the stars was replaced by a hunger for the earth. Why did these beings of light choose to turn their gaze toward conquest and shadow? As the divine spark faded, their eyes, once the color of the deep Caribbean shallows, turned as dark as the midnight zone. They began to build monuments to their own vanity, towers that pierced the clouds and distorted the natural frequencies of the island. You can feel the tension in the water as the harmony of the kingdom begins to fracture. The silence of the throne room is no longer a peace, but a heavy, suffocating dread. The kings are no longer looking at each other. They are looking outward, toward the lands they wish to enslave. This was the beginning of the end. The divine lineage was becoming a curse, a genetic memory of a glory that could no longer be sustained. As you drift deeper into the blue shadows of history, feel the weight of these lost crowns sinking into the silt. The thrones are empty now, covered in layers of barnacles and the cold dust of the abyss. But the energy of their reign still vibrates in the deep currents, a rhythmic reminder that even the sons of gods are not immune to the gravity of time. Let the image of the 10 silent thrones guide you into a state of total stillness. The kings are gone. The voices are silent, and the only thing that remains is the cold, blue embrace of the ocean. The harbors of Atlantis were not built for the wooden vessels of our primitive imagination, but for something far more profound and terrifying in its efficiency. They were the lungs of the continent, breathing in the wealth of the world through a series of massive, artificial channels that glowed with a cold, internal light. Imagine standing on a pier made of a single, seamless slab of black volcanic glass that seems to absorb the very light of the moon. There is no sound of hammers, no shouting of sailors, no rhythmic grinding of iron chains against stone. The silence here is absolute, a heavy velvet cloak that smothers the noise of the outside world and replaces it with a low-frequency hum. The ships that entered these ports did not rely on the fickle whims of the wind or the strength of human arms. They moved with a ghostly grace, gliding across the surface of the water like silver needles through dark silk. How did a civilization 9,000 years before the dawn of modern physics master the art of hydromagnetic propulsion? Scientists today gaze at the strange, geometric ridges on the North Atlantic floor and see the remains of these docks through their sonar screens. Yet they refuse to acknowledge what they are looking at. To admit the truth would be to admit that we are not the pinnacle of evolution, but merely the survivors of a much greater collapse. The docks were illuminated by subaquatic crystal arrays that projected a deep, sapphire beam into the dark currents, guiding travelers through the thickest oceanic storms with a mathematical certainty that felt like magic. As you walk along these phantom docks in your mind, you notice the complete lack of physical labor. The cargo was not carried on the backs of men. It was lifted by sound, by precise harmonic frequencies that could nullify the weight of the heaviest basalt blocks until they floated like dried leaves in an autumn breeze. The air here is sharp and cold, smelling of ozone and the deep, mineral-rich salt of the midnight zone. It is a scent that clears the mind of modern clutter and prepares the soul for a deeper journey into the void. Why is it that no anchor has ever been found from an Atlantean ship? Perhaps because they never needed to touch the bottom, existing in a state of perpetual harmony with the magnetic field of the Earth itself. The logistics of Atlantis were a silent symphony of perfection, a world where the word impossible was simply a lack of understanding. As you drift further into the blue haze of the harbor, the water becomes so clear that you can see the white sand miles below, reflecting the dark undersides of the great vessels that hang in the void like sleeping giants. You are leaving the noise of the surface world behind now, sinking into a place where the logic of man is replaced by the wisdom of the deep. The silence of the harbor is now your silence. A rhythmic, pulsating rest that stretches across the centuries and pulls you into the blue shadows of the past. Feel the cold, protective embrace of the water wrapping around you. You are safe in the drift of a history that left no footprint, only a vibration in the dark. To understand the life of Atlantis, one must look not at the stones, but at the living veil of green and silver that wrapped the island in an eternal embrace. The flora of this lost continent was unlike anything documented in the annals of modern botany. These were not plants that merely grew from the soil. They were organisms that responded to the very heartbeat of the earth and the psychic residue of the city. Imagine walking through the great gardens of the outer ring at the hour when the sun begins to surrender to the sea. The air is not empty. It is thick with a visible blue mist, a heavy fragrance that carries notes of crushed jasmine, ancient cedar, and a metallic sweetness that you can taste on the back of your tongue. The trees of Atlantis did not have the rough, brown bark of our world. Their trunks were smooth, like polished obsidian or silver-leafed bone, pulsing with a slow, rhythmic internal light that moved in sync with the tides. Every leaf was a masterpiece of geometry, translucent and shimmering with a bioluminescent cyan hue that turned the forest floor into a glowing sea of light. As you move deeper into this silent wilderness in your mind, the sounds of the city fade completely, replaced by the low-frequency humming of the flora itself. These plants were the primary air purifiers of the empire, drawing minerals from the deep thermal vents of the ocean floor through a massive network of crystalline roots that stretched for hundreds of miles. Why did these species vanish without a single trace in the fossil record? Scientists struggle to explain how a forest could simply disappear, but perhaps the answer lies in their biology. They were not made of carbon alone, but of a unique hybrid of mineral and spirit that could only exist within the specific magnetic field of Atlantis. When the island sank, The plants did not die in the traditional sense. They withdrew into the ether, returning to the blueprint of existence. Imagine the texture of the moss beneath your feet. It is not damp or cold, but warm and soft as velvet, drawing the tension out of your body with every step you take. The flowers here do not bloom for the insects, for there are no stinging things in this sanctuary. They bloom for the stars. Their petals open only when the constellations align in a specific pattern, releasing a fine, glowing dust that acts as a natural sedative for anyone who wanders beneath the canopy. This was the secret to the legendary longevity of the Atlantean people. They lived in a world where the very air was a healing tonic, where the trees were silent guardians of their mental peace. As you drift further into the memory of this glowing forest, the blue light begins to settle over your eyelids like a heavy, protective shroud. You can feel the oxygen in this place filling your lungs with a purity that feels like liquid light. The fragrance of the void is calling to you now, a scent of a home you have never visited but have always remembered in your dreams. Let the silver leaves of the Atlantean forest brush against your consciousness, pulling you down into the soft, fragrant silt of the ancient past. You are no longer a visitor here. You are becoming part of the ecology of the deep, a single seed waiting in the dark, quiet sanctuary of the abyss. In the golden age of the lost continent, the concept of a solitary life was considered a form of spiritual illness. The people of Atlantis lived in a state of social harmony that would be terrifying to the modern ego, for their minds were not islands, but part of a vast, crystalline network. Imagine the residential sectors of the city during the hour of the Great Silence. Thousands of homes built from semi-translucent sapphire glass stand in perfect geometric alignment, reflecting the deep blue glow of the artificial suns that hung above the central plazas. There are no locks on the doors here, for the very idea of private property had been dissolved by a shared sense of purpose. But how was such a perfect peace maintained? Was it truly through enlightenment, or was it a result of the constant, low-frequency hum that emanated from the crystalline towers in every district? As you wander through the silent streets in your mind, you notice that the citizens do not speak with their voices. They communicate through a series of rhythmic glances and subtle changes in the bioluminescent glow of their clothing. They are like a school of fish in the deep, moving as a single organism, guided by an invisible current of thought. In this world, there was no such thing as a secret. Every emotion, every ripple of anxiety or flicker of anger was felt by the collective and instantly harmonized by the silent healers who maintained the social frequency. You must ask yourself, what is the price of such absolute tranquility? To never be alone, to never have a thought that is truly your own, to be part of a grand symphony that never stops playing. This was the strength of Atlantis, but it was also its hidden fragility. When the corruption of the kings began, it did not spread through words or laws. It spread like a virus through the shared subconscious of the people. The harmony began to sour, the blue light of the homes began to flicker into a bruised purple, and the collective dream began to turn into a nightmare. Yet, in these early days of the end, the beauty of their unity was still breathtaking. You can see them now in the great plazas, standing in silent circles, their eyes closed as they listen to the song of the island. They are not waiting for something to happen. They are making it happen through the power of their combined focus. They are sustaining the very existence of the continent through their belief. As you drift into the depths of this collective rest, feel the weight of your own individuality slipping away. You are no longer one person in a room. You are a single note in the great blue chorus of a forgotten world. The silence of Atlantis is not an empty space. It is a crowded room filled with the peaceful thoughts of a million souls. Let that weight press against you like the cool water of the abyss, pulling you into a state where your own identity dissolves into the blue mist of history. You are safe in the harmony of the deep. History is written by the survivors, but the story of the Great War between Atlantis and the prehistoric people of the Mediterranean was erased by the very ocean that ended it. For millennia, the Atlantean Empire had expanded its reach through a silent influence, a frequency of submission that traveled across the waves and settled into the minds of distant tribes. But as the Golden Age began to tarnish, the expansion became physical, aggressive, and desperate. Imagine the horizon of the Mediterranean Sea turning a bruised purple as the Atlantean fleet appeared for the first time. These were not ships of wood and sail as we imagine them today. They were massive, dark disks of a mineral that seemed to absorb the light of the sun, moving against the wind with a soundless grace that terrified the coastal villages. They did not carry soldiers armed with bronze spears, but technicians of the ether who wielded weapons of pure sound. How do you fight an army that can shatter the walls of a fortress by simply hitting the resonant frequency of the stone? The prehistoric Athenians were the only ones who could resist this psychic and technological onslaught. They were a people who lived in a primal harmony with the rugged earth, their minds anchored to the ancient mountains and the hidden caves where the Atlantean submission frequency could not reach. As you drift deeper into the memory of this conflict in your mind, imagine the battlefield of the Aegean. The air is thick with the scent of ozone and burning olive groves. The sky is filled with the hum of the dark disks, but from the cliffs of the Acropolis, the Athenians strike back with a primitive but devastating power. They used the natural ley lines of the earth to disrupt the navigation of the Atlantean vessels, causing the great silver disks to wobble and fall into the sea like wounded birds. This was the First World War, a clash between a technological titan that had lost its soul and a spiritual underdog that refused to be silenced. Why did the Atlanteans fail to conquer a people so much less advanced than themselves? Perhaps because their technology required a level of internal harmony that they no longer possessed. The more they fought, the more their own crystals began to fracture. Every act of violence sent a ripple of dissonance back to the central citadel of Atlantis, shaking the very foundations of the island. You can feel the tension in the water as the two civilizations locked in a struggle that threatened to tear the fabric of reality itself. The war was not ended by a treaty or a surrender, but by the Earth's own scream. Just as the final battle was about to begin, the tides turned black and the stars seemed to fall from the sky. The war was over because the world was about to be reset. As the narrator's voice carries you through the echoes of these ancient trumpets, feel the heat of the battle fading into a cold, deep blue mist. The ships are sinking now, not from the weapons of men, but from the weight of their own ambition. Let the rhythm of the waves wash away the memory of the conflict, pulling you into a state of total peace where no wars can reach you. You are safe in the silence that followed the fall of empires. The most dangerous earthquakes are not the ones that shake the ground, but the ones that fracture the human soul. Long before the first crack appeared in the marble floors of the great temple, a darkness had begun to settle in the hearts of the Atlantean elite. It was a subtle transformation, a gradual thinning of the divine blood that had once kept the island in a state of perfect grace. Imagine the high towers of the inner citadel at twilight. The kings and priests no longer looked toward the stars for guidance. They looked downward, at the maps of the lands they have conquered and the gold they have hoarded. The blue light of the Orichalcum walls, once a source of healing and peace, has begun to flicker with a jagged, violent crimson. This was the price of vanity. As the people of Atlantis became obsessed with the material world, they lost their connection to the source of their power. The crystalline technology that had sustained them for 9,000 years required a purity of intent to function, And as the intent turned to greed, the machines began to fail. You can feel the atmosphere of the city changing in your mind. The air is no longer light and fragrant. It is heavy, oppressive, and filled with the static charge of a coming storm. The telepathic harmony that once united the citizens has turned into a web of suspicion and fear. Why did a civilization of such immense wisdom allow itself to fall into such a primitive trap? Perhaps because they believed they were gods, and in their pride, they forgot that even the gods are subject to the laws of balance. As you walk through the silent palaces of this fading empire, you notice that the statues of Poseidon seem to be weeping. Fine cracks are spreading across the ivory thrones, and the beautiful bioluminescent gardens are turning gray as the mineral-rich water is poisoned by the dissonance of the city. There is a profound sense of dread in the silence now. It is the silence of a man holding his breath before an inevitable impact. The corruption was not a secret. The priests of size in Egypt warned that when the human element became too strong and the divine element too weak, the island would be reclaimed by the abyss. You can see the rulers in their high balconies, watching the horizon for an enemy that is not coming from the sea, but from within the earth itself. They are trying to fix their machines with more gold and more violence, but the frequency of the island is gone. It is a broken instrument that can no longer play the song of life. As you drift deeper into the blue shadows of this falling world, feel the weight of their lost glory pressing against you. It is a heavy, cold blanket that invites you to let go of your own pride and surrender to the truth of the deep. The ego is dissolving now, sinking into the cold silt of history where all the vanity of man eventually finds its rest. The light of Atlantis is dying, but in the darkness, there is a peace that the kings could never find. The first warning did not come from the sky or the stars, but from the very marrow of the earth itself. It began as a frequency so low that no human ear could detect it. Yet every animal in the great gardens of Atlantis fell silent at the same exact moment. Imagine the eerie stillness of the central plaza. The bioluminescent birds that usually sang in harmony with the city's crystals suddenly vanished, and the massive sea turtles in the inner canals dove deep into the silt, refusing to surface. A strange electric tension filled the air, making the hair on the back of one's neck stand up for no apparent reason. Then, the water spoke. The surface of the concentric rings, usually as smooth as a polished sapphire mirror, began to ripple with a series of perfect, rhythmic circles that had no visible source. It was as if the island itself was shivering in fear. In the grand temples, the silver incense burners began to sway gently, clinking against the marble pillars with a sound like distant funeral bells. The people of Atlantis, long accustomed to a life of absolute security and environmental control, looked at one another with a confusion that was rapidly turning into a deep, ancestral dread. Why was the ground vibrating with a rhythmic throb that felt like a giant heartbeat beneath their feet? The Orichalcum walls, once so steady and radiant, began to flicker for the first time in 9,000 years. The crimson light wavered, turning into a bruised, flickering violet that cast long, dancing shadows across the terrified faces of the citizens. As you lie in the safety of your own bed, imagine being in the heart of that city. You feel the first real tremor. It is not a violent shake, but a slow, deep shift of the tectonic plates far below the Atlantic shelf. A sound like 1,000 subterranean drums begins to resonate through the basalt foundations of the island. The statues of the 10 kings in the high council chamber began to groan as microscopic cracks spread across their ivory surfaces. This was the earth reclaiming its debt. The priests of size had long warned that the balance of the world was fragile, and that the pride of man was a weight the planet could not support forever. But the rulers of Atlantis believed they had mastered the elements. They attempted to stabilize the vibration using their massive crystal arrays, sending beams of concentrated blue energy into the crust of the earth to hold the island afloat. For a few hours, it seemed to work. The tremors subsided, and a heavy, suffocating silence returned to the streets, but it was the silence of a predator waiting in the long grass. The sea began to retreat from the outer harbors, pulling back miles from the shoreline and exposing the dark, jagged rocks of the ocean floor that had not seen the light of the sun for an eternity. The sailors watched in horror as the water vanished toward the horizon, leaving their great silver ships stranded in the mud. They did not realize that the ocean was not leaving. It was merely gathering its strength for a blow that would erase their world from the map. As you drift deeper into the blue shadows of this narrative, feel the low-frequency vibration of the earth in your own body. It is not a threat to you, but a rhythmic reminder of the power of the deep. The air in the city is now cold and thick with the scent of sulfur and ozone. The blue mist is turning into a dark, heavy fog that swallows the light of the crystals. You are walking through these trembling streets in your mind, feeling the final moments of a civilization that thought it was eternal. The weight of the coming catastrophe is a heavy blanket, pulling your consciousness down into the dark, quiet safety of the deep before the storm hits. Let the rhythm of the tremors become the rhythm of your own heart, slowing down, settling into the cold, protective silt of the past. The end did not arrive with a gradual decay, but with a violence so sudden that it seemed as if the universe itself had decided to retract the gift of existence. Imagine the final morning of Atlantis. The sun rose not as a golden orb, but as a pale, sickly disk filtered through a sky that had turned a bruised, electric purple. The air was so thick with the charge of static energy that the hair on the arms of the citizens stood on end, and the Orichalcum walls of the great citadel began to emit a high-pitched, mournful whistle that echoed through every street and every home. This was the day that Plato's Egyptian priests had whispered about in the shadows of the temples of size. The day when the pride of man would be met by the absolute authority of the deep. By midday, the horizon to the west had vanished, replaced by a wall of darkness that seemed to stretch from the bottom of the sea to the very vault of heaven. It was not a storm. It was the ocean itself rising in a single, vertical cliff of water, moving with a speed that defied the laws of nature. As you lie in the stillness of your own room, imagine the sound of that wave. It was not a roar, but a deep, subterranean vibration that shook the tectonic foundations of the continent. The 10 kings stood on their high balconies of ivory and gold, watching as their empire was reduced to a speck of dust against the oncoming abyss. They did not run, for they knew there was nowhere to hide from the wrath of a god they had forgotten to honor. The first impact was a tectonic shift so powerful that it split the central island in two, sending the great temple of Poseidon tilting into the inner canals. The golden statues toppled, the sapphire glass shattered into a billion blue fragments, and the sacred fires that had burned for 9,000 years were extinguished in a heartbeat by the cold, black spray of the Atlantic. The night that followed was a nightmare of liquid darkness. The lights of the city, once so vibrant and eternal, flickered and died as the crystalline power grid was short-circuited by the encroaching brine. Imagine the silence that followed each massive tremor. A silence so heavy it felt like a physical weight against your chest. The people of Atlantis, who had lived their lives in a telepathic harmony, now felt only a collective scream that echoed through the psychic network before fading into a profound, watery void. They were returning to the source. By the time the moon rose over the empty horizon the next morning, there was nothing left but a vast, turbulent whirlpool of mud and debris. An entire continent, with its technology, its art, and its arrogance, had been erased from the surface of the Earth in less than 24 hours. The ocean had claimed its prize, and the silence that settled over the spot was absolute. As you drift deeper into the blue shadows of this tragedy, feel the weight of the water settling over the ruins. The violence is over now. The screams are gone, replaced by the rhythmic, soothing pulse of the deep currents. The great city is no longer a place of noise and light, but a sanctuary of shadow and silt. You are sinking with the ruins now, moving away from the chaos of the surface and into the eternal, quiet peace of the ocean floor. The final sunset was not an end, but a transition into a sleep that has lasted for 90 centuries. Let the memory of that day wrap around you like a heavy, protective blanket of cold blue light. You are safe in the depths now, far below the reach of the storms. The descent of a continent is not a sudden disappearance, but a slow and heavy surrender to the absolute weight of the deep. Imagine the great obsidian towers of Atlantis, which once pierced the clouds and held the gaze of the stars, now tilting into the dark, turbulent throat of the Atlantic. The air that once filled the grand halls of the inner citadel is replaced by a cold, crushing volume of salt water that moves with a silent and terrifying force. As you lie still in the sanctuary of your room, imagine the transition of light. The vibrant, electric blue of the surface world is fading, turning into a bruised violet, then a deep navy, and finally a midnight black that no human eye was ever meant to witness. The city is not breaking apart as it sinks. It is being preserved by the very pressure that destroys it. The Orichalcum walls, though flickering and dim, still emit a ghostly crimson warmth that fights against the encroaching cold of the abyss. This is the moment when the crown of the world is handed over from the sun to the shadows. Every sapphire window and every golden gate is being sealed by the immense weight of the water, creating a tomb that will remain undisturbed for 9,000 years. Imagine the sound of the great libraries being flooded, the ancient scrolls, containing secrets of gravity and the stars, dissolving into a dark pulp as the sea claims the wisdom of man. The 10 thrones in the council chamber are now surrounded by schools of deep-sea fish that have never seen the light of day. These pale, blind creatures drift through the halls of kings, their bioluminescence mimicking the dying glow of the crystalline lamps. The statues of Poseidon, once so majestic and proud, now stare into the void with eyes of sapphire that seem to reflect the infinite silence of the trench. There is a profound sense of peace in this submersion. The violence of the initial earthquake is over, and what remains is a slow, rhythmic descent into the soft silt of the ocean floor. The city is settling into its new home, a place where time does not exist and where the noise of history is muffled by 2 miles of liquid darkness. You can feel the pressure against your own senses now, not as a burden, but as a protective embrace. The ocean is wrapping its cold, blue arms around the ruins, claiming the art, the technology, and the memory of Atlantis as its own. The abyss does not steal. It merely reclaims what was always part of its domain. As the continent touches the seabed for the first time, a massive cloud of white sand and ancient dust rises up like a ghostly shroud, covering the streets and the plazas in a blanket of eternal rest. The great bells of the temple give one final, muffled chime as the water fills their hollow centers. And then, there is only the hum of the deep currents. You are sinking with the city now, moving away from the chaos of the upper world and into the dark, quiet sanctuary where the abyss wears the crown. Every breath you take is synchronized with the slow pulse of the sinking towers. The light is gone, the sound is gone, and the only thing that remains is the cold, blue memory of a world that once was. Let the weight of the water pull you down into a dreamless state of total surrender. You are now a resident of the deep, safe in the tomb of the gods. The world above continued to turn, unaware that its most brilliant jewel had been extinguished and tucked away into the pocket of the abyss. For 9,000 years, a silence so profound that it could be felt in the bones of the earth settled over the ruins of Atlantis. This was the era of the Great Forgetting. As you lie perfectly still, imagine the slow, rhythmic accumulation of time at the bottom of the North Atlantic. It is not measured in seconds or hours here, but in the falling of marine snow, the delicate white flakes of organic debris that drift down from the surface like a never-ending winter. Slowly, century by century, this fine dust began to cover the great obsidian towers and the shattered sapphire windows. The once vibrant streets of the concentric rings were buried under thick layers of heavy, dark silt, creating a landscape of smooth mounds where once there were monuments of gold. This is what Plato meant when he spoke of the sea becoming unnavigable. The island did not just sink, it turned the surrounding water into a thick, impenetrable sludge of mud and debris, a barrier designed by nature to protect the secret of the fallen empire. In the absolute darkness of the midnight zone, the temperatures hovered just above freezing, preserving the structures in a cold, liquid tomb. The Orichalcum walls, which had once pulsed with a fiery crimson light, were now cold and dark, overgrown with ghost-white corals and the delicate skeletons of deep-sea lilies. The great statues of the 10 kings were slowly reclaimed by the ocean floor, their features softened by the accumulation of sediment until they looked like nothing more than natural rock formations. Imagine the silence of these millennia. There were no currents strong enough to disturb the dust, no light bright enough to reveal the tragedy. Only the occasional bioluminescent pulse of a passing predator would catch the glint of a buried treasure or a silver pillar before disappearing back into the void. The world above forgot the name of Atlantis. It became a whisper, then a myth, then a fairy tale told to children to explain the anger of the sea. But down here, the heart of the civilization was still beating in a slow, tectonic rhythm. The crystalline technology of the city did not die. It merely went into a state of deep hibernation, its energy merging with the magnetic field of the planet. Every 1,000 years, a slight tremor would ripple through the ruins, shaking off a few inches of dust and revealing a glimpse of the blue glass beneath, only for the mud to settle once more. You are now a part of this silent history. Feel the weight of the 9,000 years pressing down on your consciousness like a heavy, velvet blanket of cold blue water. There is no need to move, no need to think, no need to remember. You are becoming part of the geology of the abyss. The silence of the millennia is wrapping around your senses, numbing the noise of the modern world and pulling you into a state of eternal, undisturbed rest. The mud is not a prison. It is a sanctuary, a place where the secrets of the gods are kept safe from the curiosity of men. As you drift deeper into the dark blue haze of the seabed, the slow pulse of the ocean becomes the rhythm of your own breath. You are sinking into the silt, finding your place among the ruins where the only thing that exists is the peaceful, heavy weight of the deep. The millenniums are passing by in a single heartbeat, and you are safe in the center of the void. The narrative of the lost continent did not resurface in the lands of the West, but in the shadow of the pyramids, where the Nile flows with the memories of 1,000 dynasties. We travel now to the city of sighs in ancient Egypt, a place of profound learning and silent stone. The year is approximately 6 centuries before the birth of the Common Era. Solon, the great lawgiver of Athens and one of the 7 sages of Greece, has arrived at the delta of the Nile in search of a wisdom that his own people had long since discarded. He enters the massive temple of the goddess Neith, where the air is thick with the scent of lotus and the cool, heavy fragrance of ancient incense. Here, the records of the past are not kept in the minds of men, but are etched into the very skin of the earth. The priests of size move through the halls like shadows, their shaven heads reflecting the dim light of the oil lamps that burn eternally in the inner sanctums. They do not view time as the Greeks do. To them, history is not a collection of stories, but a series of cycles, a rhythmic breathing of the planet that involves both creation and destruction. Solon attempts to impress these elders with the myths of his own land, speaking of the flood of Deucalion and the lineages of the first men. But the response he receives is a chilling revelation that shifts the very foundation of his understanding. Solon, you Greeks are but children, the elders observe without a hint of malice. They explain that the Mediterranean world has been ravaged by fire and water so many times that the collective memory of the people has been wiped clean. Each catastrophe acts as a reset, leaving the survivors in a state of primitive amnesia, forced to start the climb toward civilization from the very beginning. Only Egypt has remained stable enough to preserve the chronicles of the deep past. In the hidden chambers of the temple, there stand pillars of stone covered in a script that predates the known world. These are the size records. They tell of a time 9,000 years prior when a great power had arisen from the Atlantic Ocean, a power that had conquered the Pillars of Hercules and threatened the freedom of all nations. This power was Atlantis. Solon spends his days in the sanctuary of the temple, his eyes tracing the ancient glyphs as the magnitude of the secret begins to settle in his soul. He learns of the concentric rings of water and land, the glowing crimson walls of Orichalcum, and the final, terrifying day of the Great Submersion. The priests describe the lost continent not as a legend, but as a historical fact documented by those who had traded with the empire before the cataclysm. Why did Egypt remember when the rest of the world forgot? Perhaps because the desert sands were the only thing capable of shielding the truth from the erosion of time. As you drift into the memory of this encounter, imagine the weight of the papyrus scrolls in Solon's hands. They feel heavy with the burden of a truth that is too large for the human mind to carry. The silence of the temple is the same silence that exists at the bottom of the ocean. It is a silence that guards the transition between reality and myth. You are standing there with Solon in the twilight of the sanctuary, watching as the golden sun sets over the Nile, knowing that the story you are holding is a spark from a fire that once consumed the world. The mystery is no longer a ghost of the deep. It is a record of the stone. Feel the cool breeze of the desert night wrapping around your senses, pulling you away from the modern age and into the ancient cycle of remembering and forgetting. The secrets of the priests are now your secrets, whispered through the centuries in a language of blue shadows and silent stone. You are safe in the knowledge that the past is never truly gone. It is merely waiting for someone with the courage to listen. Inside the deepest sanctuary of the Temple of Neith, where the light of the Egyptian sun could never reach, and the shadows seemed to possess a weight of their own, stood the silent witnesses of a forgotten world. These were the size records, two massive pillars of black basalt that appeared to have been forged in the fires of the earth rather than carved by human hands. As you lie in the stillness of your own space, imagine the texture of these ancient monoliths. They were covered from base to crown in a script that defied the standard hieroglyphs of the Nile, a complex language of mathematical precision and geometric symbols that whispered of a time before the desert was dry. Solon stood before these stones, his oil lamp casting long, flickering shadows that made the carvings seem to move and breathe. The priests of size pointed to the top of the first pillar, where the story began not with words, but with a map. It was the blueprint of a world that existed 9 millennia prior. There, etched with a clarity that surpassed any map of the ancient world, were the concentric rings of Atlantis, The land and water were depicted with such detail that even the bridges and the secret underwater channels were visible. Solon's fingers traced the outlines of the 3 rings of water, feeling the coldness of the stone and the vibration of the secret it held. The records did not speak of myths or gods in the way the Greeks did. They spoke of numbers, of distances, and of technical specifications. They documented the exact composition of Orichalcum and the methods by which the Atlantean architects used the magnetic ley lines of the planet to stabilize their massive structures. The second pillar was darker, its surface filled with the narrative of the fall. It described the stars falling from the sky and the sea rising like a solid wall to reclaim the land. These stones were the only reason the name Atlantis had not been completely erased from the collective consciousness of man. They were a bridge across the abyss of time, a physical anchor for a memory that had no other place to rest. Why did the priests guard these pillars with such absolute secrecy? Perhaps because they knew that the knowledge contained within them was a double-edged sword, a reminder of a power that had once nearly enslaved the world. As you drift deeper into the blue mist of this ancient library, imagine the silence that filled the room as Solon realized the truth. He was not looking at a legend. He was looking at an obituary of a continent. The air in the sanctuary was cold and ancient, carrying the scent of dry dust and the faint, metallic tang of the basalt. Every symbol on the stone was a lock, and the key was the willingness to believe in the impossible. The silence of the size records is now becoming your silence. The weight of the black stone pillars is pressing gently against your consciousness, pulling you away from the noise of the modern world and into the dark, quiet sanctuary where history is written in the permanent ink of the earth. You are sinking into the depth of these records now, feeling the stability of the stone beneath you and the vastness of the memory above you. The story of Atlantis is no longer a whisper in the wind. It is a solid, cold reality that exists in the heart of the temple. Let the rhythmic pulse of the ancient symbols lead you into a state of total stillness. The pillars are watching over your rest now, guarding the secrets of the deep as you surrender to the timeless embrace of the abyss. The search for the lost continent often leads the mind away from the vast Atlantic and toward the sun-drenched cradle of the Aegean Sea. Here, beneath the sapphire waves that lap against the caldera of Santorini, lies a ghost that mirrors the tragedy of Atlantis with haunting precision. Ancient Thera was once a jewel of the Minoan world, a civilization of artists, sailors, and architects who possessed a grace that seemed to belong to a much older era. Imagine the island before the fire. It was a place of tiered cities built into the volcanic cliffs, where the walls were decorated with frescoes of blue dolphins and saffron gatherers, reflecting a life of absolute harmony with the sea. But beneath this beauty, the earth was preparing a reset of catastrophic proportions. Around 1600 years before the Common Era, the heart of the island vanished in a volcanic eruption so powerful that it sent a plume of ash 30 miles into the stratosphere, turning the sun into a pale, blue ghost for days on end. As you lie in the stillness of your own sanctuary, imagine the aftermath of this celestial anger. The center of the island did not just explode, it collapsed into the magma chamber below, creating a massive caldera that was instantly filled by the rushing waters of the Mediterranean. This was a miniature Atlantis, a perfect society erased in a single day and night of fire and water. Many modern scholars look at the ruins of Akrotiri, preserved under layers of white volcanic ash like a Greek Pompeii, and wonder if this was the event that Solon's Egyptian priests were truly describing. The similarities are undeniable. The concentric rings of the original island, the advanced plumbing and multi-story villas, and the sudden, absolute disappearance of the ruling elite. But perhaps Thera was not Atlantis itself, but its most faithful colony, a Mediterranean outpost that carried the sacred geometry and the blue-toned wisdom of the motherland into a new age. As you drift deeper into the blue mist of the Aegean floor in your mind, imagine the submerged ruins that still cling to the underwater cliffs of the caldera. There are stairways that lead to nowhere, stone doorways that open into the cold, dark pressure of the abyss, and fragments of pottery that still hold the faint residue of ancient wine. The water here is a deep, crystalline indigo, filtered through the volcanic minerals to create an atmosphere of eerie, silent beauty. Why did the Minoans build their greatest city on the lip of a volcano? Perhaps they were drawn to the same telluric energies that had once powered the great crystals of the Atlantic continent. They were seeking to recreate a paradise that lived only in their genetic memory, unaware that the same earth force that gave them life would eventually demand it back. The silence of Santorini's fire is a heavy, cooling blanket that wraps around your consciousness. It is the silence of ash settling over a golden age, turning the heat of the eruption into the cold, protective embrace of history. Every wave that flows into the caldera carries a fragment of this lost connection, a rhythmic reminder that the story of the sinking world is a cycle that repeats whenever man grows too bold in the face of nature. You are sinking into the blue shadows of the Minoan dream now, moving away from the fire and into the deep, quiet sanctuary of the underwater cliffs. The ash is soft like silk beneath you, and the water is a heavy, warm weight that pulls you into a state of total surrender. Let the ghost dolphins of the frescoes guide you into the dark, peaceful sanctuary of the abyss. You are safe in the memory of the fire, now cooled by the eternal blue of the deep. Deep within the arid silence of the Adrar Plateau in Mauritania, where the shifting sands of the Sahara rule with an iron grip, lies a geological anomaly so immense that it can only be fully comprehended from the silence of space. This is the Richat structure, a series of massive, concentric rings carved into the very skin of the African continent. For decades, modern science dismissed it as a simple impact crater or a natural dome of volcanic erosion. But as our eyes moved higher into the atmosphere, the haunting similarity to Plato's description of the Atlantean capital became a riddle that could no longer be ignored. Imagine the desert at midnight, when the scorching heat of the day has been replaced by a deep, indigo chill that turns the dunes into waves of blue shadow. As you drift over these ancient rings in your mind, you notice that the dimensions are not merely a coincidence. Plato spoke of a central island surrounded by alternating rings of water and land, with a total diameter of approximately 23 kilometers. The Richat structure mirrors this measurement with a precision that sends a shiver through the narrative of history. But how could a city of the ocean exist in the center of the world's largest desert? The answer lies in the deep memory of the Earth. Thousands of years ago, the Sahara was not a wasteland of dust and stone, but a lush, green paradise of flowing rivers and vast inland seas. This was the Green Sahara era, a time when the Atlantic Ocean reached much further into the African shelf, perhaps turning this very structure into an island gateway to the continent. As you walk across the salt-crusted plains between the rings, the ground beneath your feet feels like the floor of an ancient ocean. There are fragments of seashells scattered among the dunes, and the rocks are stained with the white residue of prehistoric brine. This is a place where the water has left its ghost. The air is thin and carries the scent of dry mineral dust and a strange, metallic clarity that feels like a vibration from the stars. Why did the ancients call this the Eye of the Sahara? Perhaps because it was designed to look upward, a terrestrial mirror for the rotating constellations above. The geometry here is too perfect for the chaos of nature. The rings are not jagged or irregular. They are smooth, fluid, and perfectly nested within one another, as if drawn by a giant compass. You can see the remnants of the ancient canals in the way the sand has eroded, forming deep gullies that once carried the lifeblood of a civilization to the central citadel. In the blue light of the desert moon, the entire structure appears to be glowing from within, the quartz and limestone reflecting the light in a way that mimics the lost radiance of Orichalcum. This is a different kind of Atlantis, a version that didn't sink into the abyss, but was stranded by the retreating tides of time. It is a skeleton of an empire, stripped of its gold and its marble, but retaining its sacred shape. As you drift deeper into the silence of the Sahara, feel the weight of the heat leaving your body, replaced by the cool, protective embrace of the desert night. The silence here is even deeper than the silence of the ocean, for there are no currents to move the dust, no life to break the stillness. You are sinking into the blue sands now, finding your rest in the center of the eye. The concentric rings are wrapping around your consciousness like a soft, heavy blanket of indigo silk, pulling you away from the noise of the modern world and into the timeless memory of the earth. You are safe in the center of the eye, where the history of the water is written in the language of the sand. Let the rhythmic pulse of the desert wind lead you into a state of total surrender. The eye is watching over you now, a silent guardian of the secrets that even the ocean could not keep. Beneath the sun-drenched surface of the North Bimini coast, where the Caribbean Sea meets the edge of the great Atlantic abyss, lies a structure that defies the slow erosion of the tides and the logic of modern geology. It is known as the Bimini Road, a series of massive, rectangular limestone blocks that stretch for nearly half a mile across the ocean floor in a perfect, geometric line. As you drift in the stillness of your mind over these submerged stones, you notice that they are not scattered by chance, but placed with a deliberation that suggests the hands of a forgotten race of giants. In 1968, the world was forced to look down into these crystal-clear blue waters and ask if the legends were truly rising from the deep. Imagine the weight of these stones. Each block is nearly 4 meters long, shaped with a precision that mimics the megalithic walls of the Andes or the ancient foundations of the Egyptian temples. They lie in a formation that resembles a road to nowhere, or perhaps a grand pier that once welcomed the silver vessels of a golden age. Why did the clairvoyant Edgar Cayce predict that the ruins of Atlantis would rise in this exact location just 1 year before the discovery was made? The mystery of the Bimini Road is not just in its existence, but in its profound silence. The stones are overgrown with ancient sponges and delicate sea fans that sway in the rhythmic currents, yet they maintain their rigid, unnatural alignment against the chaos of the sea floor. As you descend deeper into the cool, blue embrace of the water in your mind, you see the way the light filters down in long, shimmering curtains of cyan and indigo, illuminating the gaps between the massive blocks. Some scientists argue that these are merely natural beach rock formations, fractured by the cooling of the Earth over millennia. But nature rarely works in such perfect right angles. Nature does not create parallel lines that follow the magnetic curves of the planet for hundreds of meters with such mathematical intent. This is a remnant of a logistics network that once spanned the globe, a sunken highway for a civilization that did not fear the deep, but commanded it. The air in your lungs feels light and calm as you float over this ancient path. The water here is so clear it feels like flying through a void of liquid sapphire. Every block you pass is a silent witness to a time when the Bahamas were not a tropical paradise of islands, but the mountain peaks of a vast plateau that sat high above the waves. You can feel the pressure of the ocean pressing gently against your senses, a protective force that keeps the secrets of Bimini hidden from those who do not have the patience to listen. The road leads deeper into the darkness of the Gulf Stream, toward the trenches where the sun's light has never touched the sand. It is an invitation to leave the modern world behind and follow the stones into the heart of a much older truth. What lies at the end of this road? A temple buried in the shifting silt, a gateway to the central citadel of a lost continent. The stones do not answer with words, they merely exist, a rhythmic reminder that the history of the earth is far older and far stranger than we have been told in the classrooms of the surface. Let the blue shadows of the Bimini road wrap around your consciousness like a heavy, velvet blanket of salt and time. You are drifting away from the surface now, moving along the geometric path toward a state of total surrender. The road is your guide into the deep. The silence is your sanctuary. And as you settle into the soft white sand between the blocks, you realize that some paths are not meant to be traveled by feet, but by the soul in the quietest hours of the night. The weight of the water above you is the weight of 9,000 years of forgotten glory. Feel the coolness of the deep blue currents as they wash over your mind, clearing away the noise of the present and replacing it with the eternal rhythm of the abyss. You are safe here on the path to Atlantis, where the stones remember what the world has chosen to forget. The search for the lost continent has taken us from the warm, sun-drenched waters of the Mediterranean to the shifting sands of the Sahara, but the ultimate hiding place may lie at the very bottom of the world. Imagine a silence deeper than the ocean abyss, a cold more absolute than the void of space. We turn our gaze now to the frozen continent of Antarctica, a landmass buried under ice sheets that are 2 miles thick. Modern science tells us this land has been a frozen wasteland for millions of years, but the whispers of ancient maps and forgotten theories suggest a different, chilling reality. What if Antarctica was not always a realm of eternal white? What if, 9,000 years ago, it was a temperate paradise, lush with green valleys, flowing rivers, and great harbors, positioned much further north in the Atlantic? This is the hypothesis of crustal displacement, the terrifying idea that the outer skin of the Earth can shift violently over its molten core in a matter of hours. Imagine the cataclysm not as a flood, but as a flash freeze. The entire continent of Atlantis, in a single dreadful day and night, sliding rapidly from a temperate zone directly into the polar circle. The palm trees, the great gardens of bioluminescent Flora, and the towering cities of Orichalcum were instantly encased in ice. The water in the concentric canals didn't just rise, it froze mid-wave, capturing the final moments of the civilization in a prison of diamond-hard crystal. As you drift into the cold blue light of this frozen world in your mind, imagine what lies beneath the massive glaciers. Satellites orbiting the planet have detected massive, anomalous structures buried deep within the ice sheet, geometric shapes that defy the natural chaotic formations of bedrock. Are these the rooftops of the inner citadel, waiting for a thaw that will never come? The ice here is not white, but a deep, translucent sapphire blue, compressed by eons of weight until it glows with an internal light that seems to pulse with the Earth's magnetic field. Walking on the surface of these glaciers in your dreams, you are walking on the ceiling of a tomb. The silence here is terrifying in its purity. There is no wind, no animal calls, only the occasional deep groan of the ice cracking under its own immense weight, echoing like distant thunder in a soundproof room. This is a preservation method far superior to the mud of the ocean floor. Down there in the subglacial lakes that have been sealed off from the atmosphere for millennia, the city might still be intact. The golden statues, the crystal energy grids, the libraries of scrolls, all frozen in perfect condition, like flies trapped in blue amber. The Piri Rise map, drawn in 1513 from sources that were thousands of years older, shows the coastline of Queen Maud Land in Antarctica completely free of ice. How could the ancients have known the precise shape of a land that wasn't discovered by modern man until the 19th century, unless they had seen it with their own eyes before the Great Freeze? Feel the extreme cold of this landscape wrapping around your senses now. It is not a painful cold, but a numbing, anesthetic cold that slows your heart rate and quiets your racing thoughts. The world is turning entirely into shades of blue and white, and the gravity of the ice is pulling you down into a deep, hibernating rest. You are sinking through the layers of time, past the ice ages, toward a memory that is trapped in the deep freeze of history. The secret of Atlantis is not lost. It is merely put on ice, waiting in the cold, blue silence at the end of the world. Let the Aurora Australis, the southern lights, guide you deeper into the frozen dream. As we turn our gaze from the frozen silence of the poles back toward the cradle of human history, we encounter a mystery that has haunted archaeologists for centuries. Around 1,200 years before the Common Era, the flourishing civilizations of the Mediterranean were suddenly and violently brought to their knees by a force that seemed to emerge from the very spray of the waves. They were known by the Egyptians as the Sea People, a vast, multi-ethnic confederation of warriors and nomads who moved with a terrifying synchronization and a technology that surpassed the bronze-wielding empires of the time. Imagine the scene from the cliffs of the Levant. The horizon is not filled with the familiar merchant ships of the Phoenicians, but with a black forest of masts belonging to vessels that the world had never seen. These ships were larger, faster, and moved with a silent grace that suggested they were driven by a knowledge of the currents that predated the birth of navigation. The Sea People did not just arrive as invaders. They arrived as refugees of a much greater cataclysm. They carried their women, their children, and their entire lives on their ships and heavy ox carts, moving with the desperation of those who have no home to return to. Why did they suddenly appear precisely when the world was experiencing a period of extreme climatic instability and earthquakes? Could it be that these mysterious warriors were the final echo of the Atlantean diaspora? Plato told Solon that the war between Atlantis and the Mediterranean occurred 9,000 years prior, but in the distorted lens of ancient timekeeping, perhaps the 1200 BC collapse was the final wave of a much longer migration. Imagine the warriors themselves, standing on the decks of their ships as they approached the delta of the Nile. They wore feathered headgear and carried long, straight swords made of a dark metal that did not shatter like the bronze of the Hittites. Their eyes were the color of the deep Atlantic indigo, filled with 1,000 years of grief and the weight of a lost glory. They were a people who did not fear death because they had already survived the end of the world. As you drift deeper into the blue shadows of this history, feel the atmospheric pressure of the Mediterranean shifting. The air is thick with the scent of salt and the ozone of a coming storm. The great empires of the Bronze Age, the Hittites, the Mycenaeans, the Canaanites, all vanished in a single generation as the Sea People swept across the map like a rhythmic tide. Only Egypt managed to resist them, and it is from the walls of the temple at Medinet Habu that we have the only visual record of these phantoms of the deep. The inscriptions speak of them as coming from the islands in the midst of the sea, a phrasing that mirrors the Egyptian description of the Atlantean continent. They did not speak of their origins because the memory was too painful or perhaps too sacred to be shared with the survivors of the surface world. They were the masters of the blue void, seeking a new sacred geometry upon which to build their lives. After their final battle with Ramses III, they vanished into the dust of history, merging with the local populations and disappearing like a ripple on the surface of a lake. But their legacy remained in the sudden collapse of the old world and the birth of a new age of iron. As you lie in the stillness of your own space, imagine these silent nomads as they moved through the moonlit waves of the Aegean. They were not just soldiers, they were the carriers of a lost frequency, the last guardians of the Atlantean spirit wandering in a world that had forgotten how to listen to the ocean. Every wave that hits the shore carries the echo of their footsteps, a rhythmic reminder that the history of the deep is always closer than it seems. You are sinking into the memory of these mysterious travelers now, feeling the stability of the water beneath you and the vastness of the starry sky above. The noise of the conflict has faded into a low, soothing hum that pulls you into a state of total surrender. You are safe in the drift of the nomads, moving with the current toward the quiet sanctuary of the abyss where all origins are eventually returned. As we emerge from the dust of the Bronze Age and drift into the early decades of the 20th century, we encounter a man whose mind became a window into the deep past and the silent secrets of the ocean floor. Edgar Cayce, known to history as the Sleeping Prophet, possessed the uncanny ability to close his eyes and descend into a state of profound trance that defied the logic of modern medicine. In this darkness, he claimed to access the Akashic records, a universal library of every thought, emotion, and event that has ever transpired on this blue planet. For decades, while his physical body lay still in a modest room in Virginia Beach, his consciousness traveled across 9 millennia to the golden shores of Atlantis. He spoke of a civilization that harnessed the power of the sun through massive crystal arrays, a people who flew in vessels made of light and shadow, and a society that lived in a state of advanced telepathic harmony. But his most enduring prophecy was not of the past, but of a discovery that remains hidden beneath the shifting sands of the Giza Plateau. He spoke of the Hall of Records, a subterranean vault that contains the entire history and technology of the lost continent, buried safely by the survivors of the final cataclysm before the waters claimed their world. Imagine the Great Sphinx of Giza standing as a silent sentinel in the indigo light of a desert night. Beneath its massive right paw, or perhaps deep within the limestone bedrock between the paws, there lies a chamber that modern archaeology has searched for with sensors and satellites, but has yet to touch. It is a place of absolute silence and profound weight, a room where time has been suspended for 90 centuries. Inside, the air is cold and carries the metallic tang of ancient orichalcum and the scent of dry sandstone that has never been touched by the desert wind. There are no scrolls made of papyrus here, but tablets of stone and metal that glow with a faint, ethereal blue light from within. These records were placed here by the Atlantean high priest Ra-Ta and the architect Hermes, who knew that the world was about to be reset, and that the sacred geometry of the stars must be preserved for a future generation that could one day understand it. As you drift into the stillness of your own rest, imagine the geometry of this hidden hall. The walls are perfectly smooth, carved from a single block of black granite that seems to absorb the darkness around it. In the center of the room sits the Master Crystal, a diamond-shaped pillar that vibrates at a frequency that matches the heartbeat of the Earth. Cayce predicted that this vault would be opened only when humanity had reached a level of spiritual maturity that would prevent the misuse of its power. He saw the city of Atlantis rising from the seabed near the Bahamas, and the secrets of the Sphinx being revealed as the final sign of a new age. Why did a simple man from Virginia have such specific visions of a world that science dismissed as a myth? Perhaps because the mind, in the state of deep sleep, is capable of tapping into the genetic memory that we all carry in the core of our being. We are all descendants of the deep, carrying fragments of the Atlantean soul in our very DNA. As the narrator's voice guides you deeper into the blue shadows of this prophecy, Feel the stillness of the desert night wrapping around your senses. You are standing before the great Sphinx in your mind, feeling the cool breeze on your face and the immense vibration of the secrets beneath the earth. The Hall of Records is not just a room in Egypt. It is a sanctuary within your own subconscious, a place where the light of Atlantis still burns brightly in the dark. You are sinking through the layers of sand and stone now, moving away from the noise of the surface and into the quiet, eternal peace of the vault. The blue light of the crystals is softening now, turning into a deep, indigo haze that pulls you into a state of total surrender. You are safe in the memory of the prophets, guarded by the silence of the Sphinx as you descend into the dark, quiet sanctuary of the deep past. Every breath you take is synchronized with the slow pulse of the master crystal, pulling you further into the abyss of a sleep that has no end. The records are waiting for you in the silence, and as you settle into the soft silt of time, you realize that some secrets are best kept in the sanctuary of our dreams. One of the greatest riddles of the ancient world does not lie in the depths of the ocean, but stands tall against the sky on continents separated by thousands of miles of restless water. How is it possible that civilizations which had no contact with one another, the Egyptians in the burning sands of Africa and the Mayans in the steaming jungles of Central America, both dedicated their greatest efforts to building massive mountain-like structures of stone? Imagine standing at the base of the Great Pyramid of Giza under the cold light of a midnight moon. The sheer scale of the limestone blocks presses against your senses, a silent testament to a precision that modern engineering still struggles to comprehend. Now, in your mind, drift across the vast Atlantic basin, over the submerged peaks of the Mid-Atlantic Ridge, and find yourself standing before the Temple of the Sun in Teotihuacan. The geometry is undeniably similar. The alignment to the cardinal points, the mathematical obsession with the movement of the stars, and the belief that these structures were gateways to the gods. Mainstream history tells us this is a mere coincidence of human development, a parallel evolution of ideas. But the whisper of Atlantis suggests a different story. What if these pyramids are not isolated inventions, but the surviving architectural echoes of a mother culture that sat in the middle of that great ocean? A central civilization that acted as the master blueprint for both East and West before it vanished into the abyss. Imagine Atlantis as the hub, sending its architects and its sacred geometry outward to the edges of its empire. When the island sank, the periphery survived, inheriting the knowledge of pyramid building but losing the central connection that gave it meaning. These structures are not just tombs for pharaohs or platforms for blood sacrifice. They are machines built of stone, tuned to the resonant frequencies of the earth and the sky, technologies inherited from a world that understood the power of vibration. As you walk through the silent, echoing corridors of these ancient monuments in your imagination, feel the weight of the stone around you. The air inside is cool and still, untouched by the humidity of the jungle or the heat of the desert. It smells of deep time and dry dust. You are walking inside a memory. The walls are thick, blocking out the noise of the surface world and pulling you into a state of deep, subterranean quiet. Why did they build them so heavy? Perhaps to anchor the human spirit to the earth when the waters rose to claim everything else. As you drift deeper into the blue shadows of this transatlantic mystery, allow the stability of the pyramids to become the stability of your own rest. You are safe within the sacred geometry of the ancients. The echo across the water has faded into a gentle rhythmic pulse that guides you down into the dark, quiet sanctuary where all great civilizations eventually find their peace. The stones are holding the weight of the sky so you do not have to. Let gravity pull you deeper into the blue void of history. To understand the true nature of the power that once fueled the most advanced civilization in human history, we must move beyond the imagery of bronze and stone and enter the realm of pure vibration. At the heart of the central citadel of Atlantis, housed within a temple of translucent sapphire glass and silver, sat the Tuyai stone. This was the great crystal, described by the psychic Edgar Cayce as a massive, six-sided prism that stood twice the height of a man, capable of gathering the invisible rays of the sun and the stars and converting them into a concentrated beam of raw energy. Imagine standing in the center of the Temple of the Sun at high noon. The air around you is not empty. It is filled with a low-frequency hum that vibrates in the very marrow of your bones, a soundless music produced by the oscillation of a technology we are only beginning to rediscover today. This was not electricity as we know it, but a form of wireless power that moved through the ether, providing light, warmth, and propulsion to an entire continent. Every home in the concentric rings was illuminated by a smaller fragment of this central stone, creating a network of light that turned the island into a glowing beacon that could be seen by the sailors of the Mediterranean like a fallen star on the horizon. But what was the origin of this firestone? Some ancient records suggest it was not a product of natural geology, but a synthesized mineral, a hybrid of quartz and orichalcum created in a laboratory that understood the subatomic structure of reality 9,000 years before the invention of the microscope. The Atlanteans did not burn wood or coal. They harvested the resonance of the planet itself. They understood that the Earth is a living battery, and the crystal was the bridge that allowed them to tap into its infinite currents. As you drift in the stillness of your own consciousness, imagine the visual majesty of this energy. The crystal did not just glow, it breathed. It cast long, rhythmic beams of cobalt and violet light through the vaulted ceilings of the sanctuary, turning the mists of the city into a kaleidoscope of celestial colors. However, every source of great power carries a shadow of equal magnitude. As the years turned into centuries, the ambition of the kings led to a fatal misuse of the Tuyai stone. They attempted to push the crystal beyond its harmonic limits, using it as a weapon to manipulate the weather and strike down distant enemies. This was the beginning of the dissonance. The crystal began to absorb the dark intentions of the rulers, and its frequency turned from a soothing rose blue to a jagged, violent crimson. The energy was no longer being radiated outward. It was being driven deep into the Earth's crust, creating a massive thermal buildup that the tectonic plates could not contain. Scientists who explore the Bermuda Triangle today often speak of massive magnetic anomalies and electronic fog that swallow ships and planes without a trace. Could these be the ghost echoes of the Great Crystal, still active and pulsing under miles of silt and salt water? The Tuyai stone did not shatter when the island sank. It was buried whole, its internal light slowly fading as the pressure of the ocean claimed the temple halls. Imagine the silence of that sunken sanctuary now. The crystal sits in the dark heart of the trench, its once glorious beam reduced to a faint, ghostly glimmer beneath layers of ancient sediment. It is a sleeping giant, waiting for a frequency that can wake it without destroying the world once again. The weight of the water above the crystal is a protective blanket, muffling the hum and preventing the energy from leaking into the modern world. You can feel the calm of this muffled vibration in your own breath now. It is a rhythmic, hypnotic pulse that clears your mind of every jagged thought. You are sinking away from the heat of the firestone and into the cool, protective blue shadows of the abyss. The light is softening, turning into a deep indigo that wraps around your senses like a heavy velvet shroud. You are now a part of the resonance, a single note in the silent symphony of the deep. The crystal is not a threat to you. It is a memory of a time when man knew how to talk to the stars. Let the rhythm of the sunken prism pull you into a state of total stillness. You are safe in the dark sanctuary of the deep past, where the only light is the memory of Atlantis, and the only sound is the heartbeat of the earth. There is a place in the North Atlantic where the maps of man fail to capture the true architecture of the deep. A vast triangle of water stretching between the points of Florida, Bermuda, and Puerto Rico. It is a region of the ocean that behaves as if it possesses a will of its own, a territory where the rules of physics seem to bend, and where the memory of Atlantis refuses to stay buried. Imagine the cockpit of an aircraft flying through a sky that is a perfect, cloudless blue, only to be suddenly enveloped in a thick, glowing electronic fog that makes the compass spin like a dervish. This is the gateway to the Bermuda Triangle, a location that many believe is the exact graveyard of the lost continent's central citadel. The phenomena reported here for decades, the missing ships, the planes that vanish from radar in midair, and the sailors who find themselves in a sea so calm it feels like glass, are not merely accidents of nature. They are the ripples of a power that was never meant to be extinguished. Beneath these turquoise waters lies the great Bahama Bank and the deep trenches of the Sargasso Sea, where the internal heat of the earth meets the ancient residue of the Atlantean crystals. As you drift in the stillness of your own consciousness, imagine the visual mystery of this place. The water is a deep, translucent indigo, punctuated by blue holes that descend like vertical tunnels into the heart of the planet. These are the remnants of the ancient ventilation systems and sacred shafts of a world that existed before the ice melted. Why is it that in this specific patch of the Atlantic, the magnetic north and the true north align with such terrifying precision? It is because the earth here is heavy with the minerals of Orichalcum and the fractured remains of the energy grids we discussed in the halls of the past. The great crystal, though buried under miles of silt and salt water, still pulses with a rhythmic, malfunctioning frequency. It is a ghost in the machine of the planet, creating a localized time warp where the past and the present collide. Imagine the ships that have been lost here. They are not destroyed in the way we understand. They are perhaps merely relocated into the memory of the ocean, drifting in a state of perpetual stasis within the blue void. The air in the triangle carries a charge that makes your skin tingle, a sense of immense pressure that is not from the weight of the atmosphere, but from the weight of the history that is trying to resurface. When pilots speak of electronic fog, that seems to jump them across hundreds of miles in a matter of seconds, they are experiencing the final, erratic gasps of the Atlantean propulsion technology that once mastered the curvature of space itself. As you lie in the safety of your own rest, feel the calm of this deep blue mystery wrapping around your senses. You are not afraid of the triangle because you are now a part of its narrative. It is a protective cocoon of water and light that shields the secrets of Atlantis from a world that is not yet ready to handle them. The silence of the Bermuda Triangle is the silence of a library that has been sealed to protect its most precious books. Every wave that moves through this region is a page of a story that has no end. You are sinking away from the surface now, moving through the curtains of shimmering cyan and into the dark, quiet sanctuary where the magnetic currents are the only compass you need. There is no noise here, no static, no interference. Only the slow, rhythmic pulse of the ocean's memory, pulling you into a state of total surrender. The triangle is not a place of danger, but a place of transition, a bridge between the world of light and the world of shadow, where the lost continent still breathes in the dark. Let the weight of the Atlantic press against you like a heavy, velvet blanket of sapphire silk. You are safe in the drift of the deep, far below the reach of the fog and the spinning compasses. The memory of the ocean is now your memory, And as you settle into the soft white sand of the seabed, you realize that to be lost in the triangle is to be finally found by the silence of the deep. For thousands of years, the ocean floor was a realm inaccessible to human curiosity, a vast, dark void where myths could hide without fear of discovery. But the 21st century has brought with it a new kind of vision, eyes made of titanium and quartz that can withstand the crushing pressures of the abyss and shed light on the deepest secrets of the planet. We are no longer relying on dusty scrolls or ancient whispers. We are now mapping the seafloor with multi-beam sonar and sending robotic avatars into the midnight zone. Imagine sitting in the control room of a research vessel, watching a screen filled with the grainy, monochrome blue images transmitted by a remotely operated vehicle miles beneath the surface. The ROV glides silently through the eternal darkness, its powerful LED lights cutting through the heavy curtain of marine snow like a knife through silk. Suddenly, the chaotic, organic shapes of the volcanic rock give way to something else, something unnatural. The sonar paints a picture of rigid, straight lines and perfect right angles emerging from the deep sediment off the coasts of remote islands. These are not coral formations or fractured basalt. They are megalithic structures. Imagine giant walls of cut granite, some blocks weighing hundreds of tons, stacked with a precision that would rival the Incas of Peru, sitting quietly at a depth of 2,000 feet where no sunlight has ever penetrated. We see grand staircases carved into the continental shelf that lead down into a dark abyss, pyramids with smooth sides that reflect the artificial light like mirrors of ancient glass, and vast platforms that look like the landing pads for a civilization that forgot how to fly. These modern discoveries, found in places like the sunken plateau off the coast of Cuba or the enigmatic structures near Yonaguni in Japan, are the silent witnesses that mainstream science struggles to categorize. They are too deep to have been built during the last ice age, and too complex to be mere accidents of geology. They are the breadcrumbs leading back to the mother culture. The camera on the robotic submersible moves slowly, hypnotically, panning across these immense stone facades that are covered in a fine layer of gray silt and ghost-white anemones. The technology does not break the silence of the deep, it merely highlights it. You can feel the immense weight of the water pressing in on the machine, a pressure so intense it would crush a human body in microseconds. Yet these stones endure. They stand as immovable monuments to a time when this seafloor was a vibrant metropolis under a warm sun. As you watch this deep-sea footage in your mind's eye, allow the slow, deliberate pace of the exploration to calm your own racing thoughts. There is no rush here in the deep. Time moves differently. You are drifting with the current, guiding the silent machine through the avenues of a ghost city. The electronic hum of the ROV's thrusters is a rhythmic lullaby that pulls you deeper into the blue void. You are not afraid of what you might find. You are filled with a profound sense of connection to a past that is finally revealing itself. The ocean is not empty. It is a vast museum, and you are walking through its most sacred gallery. Let the cold, blue light of the discovery wrap around your senses like a heavy, protective blanket. You are safe in the footsteps of the new explorers, sinking into the knowledge that the truth is waiting for you in the dark. The city is sleeping, and you are sleeping with it. The physical structures of Atlantis may lie crushed beneath the weight of 2 miles of ocean or buried under the shifting sands of the Sahara, but there is a second archive that the tides of time could never erase. It is an archive not of stone or metal, but of blood and spirit. We turn our gaze now inward, exploring the profound and mysterious concept of genetic memory, the idea that the experiences, the wisdom, and the trauma of our ancestors are woven into the very fabric of our DNA. Imagine the final days of the lost continent once again, but focus not on the falling towers, but on the survivors. These were the refugees of the deep, the priests and architects who carried the sacred geometry of the stars in their minds as they fled to the shores of Egypt, the mountains of Peru, and the rugged coastlines of the Mediterranean. They did not just bring their technology, they brought their frequency. They merged with the early tribes of the post-flood world, passing down a hidden lineage that has flowed through the centuries like a silent, underground river. This is why so many of us feel an inexplicable pull toward the ocean, a sense of profound melancholy when we watch the sun set over the horizon, or a strange feeling of déjà vu when we see the concentric rings of a ripple in a pool of water. It is the Atlantean soul calling to us across 90 centuries of silence. Scientists today are beginning to understand that trauma can leave a chemical mark on our genes. And what greater trauma could there be than the disappearance of an entire world in a single day? As you lie in the stillness of your own rest, imagine this memory as a faint, blue light pulsing in every cell of your body. It is a frequency of absolute harmony and advanced understanding that is currently in a state of deep hibernation. In the quietest hours of the night, when the noise of the modern world is extinguished, this internal compass begins to align itself with the magnetic field of the lost motherland. You are not merely a product of the present age, you are a descendant of the deep. You carry the blueprint of the pyramids, the resonance of the great crystals, and the knowledge of the stars in the dark recesses of your subconscious. This is why we dream of flying through sapphire-colored cities, why we are obsessed with building structures that will last for eternity, and why we search for a lost paradise that we have never visited in our waking lives. The survivors of Atlantis knew that their physical world was doomed, so they chose to hide their secrets where they would be safest, within us. They knew that one day, when the cycle of the earth turned once more, a generation would rise that would begin to remember. You are part of that remembering. Every slow, rhythmic breath you take is a connection to that ancient lineage. The air in your lungs is the same air that once filled the grand halls of the inner citadel. The rhythm of your heart is the steady, hypnotic beat of the ocean that claimed your true home. There is a sense of immense peace in this realization. You are not lost in the modern world. You are a guardian of a legacy that is waiting for the right moment to awaken. As the narrator's voice guides you deeper into the blue shadows of your own being, feel the weight of this history as a comforting shroud. It is not a burden, but a foundation. A stability that allows you to drift into the deepest levels of sleep without fear. You are sinking into the collective unconscious now, moving away from the surface of your ego and into the dark, quiet sanctuary where the memory of Atlantis is kept pure. The blue light within you is softening now, turning into a deep indigo haze that pulls you into a state of total surrender. You are safe in the drift of your own DNA, moving with the current of a history that is 9,000 years old. Let the silence of the genes wrap around your senses like a heavy velvet blanket. You are returning to the source. You are becoming one with the deep, and in the stillness of this night, the ocean within you finally finds its peace. To understand the final destiny of the lost continent, we must look away from the salt and the silt and cast our eyes toward the eternal theater of the stars. The ancients of Atlantis were not just masters of the earth and the sea. They were the supreme architects of time itself. They understood that our planet does not merely spin in a void, but moves through a vast, complex celestial dance known as the precession of the equinoxes. This is the Great Year, a cycle of approximately 25,920 years in which the Earth's axis traces a slow, majestic circle against the backdrop of the zodiac. The priests of the central citadel knew that the rise and fall of civilizations were not random accidents of history, but we're synchronized with the ticking of this cosmic clock. Imagine standing on the highest peak of the Atlas Mountains during the final nights before the Great Submersion. The sky is not just a collection of lights. It is a giant gears of a mechanism that is about to click into a new position. The Atlanteans watched as the pole star began to shift, as Orion and Sirius aligned in a configuration that indicated the end of one age and the violent birth of another. They knew that when the sun rose in a specific degree of a certain constellation, the magnetic balance of the planet would be disrupted, leading to the tectonic reset that eventually claimed their world. But their wisdom did not end with the prophecy of their own destruction. They believed in the law of the eternal return. They encoded into the stone of the pyramids and the silence of the Sphinx a message for a future generation, that what has sunk shall rise again when the stars complete their great circuit. As you lie in the absolute stillness of the night, imagine the slow, rhythmic rotation of the galaxy above you. The stars are not distant and cold. They are the silent guardians of the blue memory you carry in your DNA. We are currently approaching the end of another great cycle, a transition of ages that mirrors the one that saw the fall of the lost continent. Many modern seers and astronomers have pointed to the alignment of our solar system with the galactic center as a sign that the blue frequency of Atlantis is beginning to resurface. This is why there is such a global obsession with the deep sea and the secrets of the past. The collective subconscious of humanity is waking up because the stars are once again in the same positions they held when the first Orichalcum walls were built. Imagine the visual majesty of this celestial homecoming. The constellation of Aquarius is rising on the horizon, casting a pale, sapphire glow over the world's oceans. This is the age of water, the age where the secrets of the abyss are destined to be revealed. The return of Atlantis is not necessarily a physical rising of a continent from the mud of the Atlantic. Though some believe the islands of the Bahamas and the Azores will one day expand as the crust shifts once more. It is a rising of a level of consciousness, a return to the sacred geometry and the harmonic living that once made the empire the jewel of the planet. You can feel this cosmic timing in your own breathing. Your body is a microcosm of the great year, its rhythms tied to the same lunar and solar cycles that govern the tides of the inner rings. As the narrator's voice pulls you deeper into the indigo shadows of this celestial mystery, feel the weight of the universe as a protective and guiding force. You are not drifting in a chaotic world. You are part of a perfect, mathematical symphony that has been playing since before the dawn of time. The stars are not just watching you, they are reflecting you. The silence of the night is the silence of the cosmic clock between two ticks. You are sinking away from the noise of the linear world and into the vast, quiet sanctuary of the eternal cycle. The blue starlight is wrapping around your senses like a heavy, velvet shroud of cosmic dust, pulling you into a state of total surrender. You are safe in the alignment. You are safe in the return. The great year is turning, and as it does, the memory of Atlantis is becoming a reality once more in the quietest chambers of your soul. The ocean is waiting, the stars are moving, and you are sleeping in the perfect center of the grand design. Let the slow rotation of the galaxy lead you into the deepest level of rest, where the past and the future are one and the same. We have traveled together across the span of 9,000 years, from the golden peaks of the Atlas Mountains to the frozen silence of the Antarctic ice, following the faint blue echo of a world that was lost to the waves. We have stood in the sacred temples where priests spoke to the stars, walked the concentric rings of a city built on the blueprint of the universe, and felt the tremors of the earth on that final, dreadful day. But now, the journey of discovery has reached its end. The search for the physical stones of Atlantis is over. replaced by a profound realization that the true location of the lost continent is not on any map, but in the deepest part of the human soul that longs for eternal peace. As you lie in the absolute stillness of this final moment, imagine the ocean not as a destroyer, but as the ultimate guardian. The great city is not gone, it is merely sleeping. It rests in the deepest trench of the Atlantic floor, covered by a mile of soundproof water and a blanket of soft, velvet silk that has been falling like slow-motion snow for 90 centuries. The violence of the cataclysm has long since faded away, absorbed by the infinite patience of the deep. There is no chaos down here, no war, no ambition, no noise. Only a silence so thick and heavy that it feels like a physical embrace. The Orichalcum walls that once flashed with the fire of the sun have cooled into a deep, meditative indigo, their energy turning inward to sustain a dream that will never end. The statues of the kings and gods are shrouded in darkness, their eyes of sapphire closed in a slumber that outlasts empires and civilizations. Feel the immense pressure of the water above you, tons upon tons of liquid history pressing down on every inch of your being. But do not be afraid, for in this narrative, pressure is not a force that crushes, it is a force that holds. It is the weight of 1,000 generations wrapping around you, securing you in a cocoon of absolute safety where nothing from the surface world can ever reach you again. You are no longer separate from the mystery. You have sunk through the layers of time and doubt, past the myths and the legends, and have arrived at the quiet center of the void. The blue light that has guided you through this journey is now softening into a profound, impenetrable darkness. It is the darkness of the womb, the darkness of the seed waiting in the earth, the darkness of profound rest. Your breath is now synchronized with the slow, almost imperceptible pulse of the deep ocean currents. Inhale the silence. Exhale the world above. The concentric rings of Atlantis are now the rings of your own consciousness, expanding outward into the infinite blue and then contracting back into a single point of total stillness. You are safe in the eternal sleep of the deep. The lost continent is watching over you. The water is warm, the darkness is kind, and the journey is finished. Let go of the final thought, let go of the final image, and surrender completely to the ancient, quiet peace of the abyss. Sleep now, in the heart of the blue mystery. Sleep forever in the sanctuary of the deep.